Hi, this is Degé with the Patient Advocacy Network at CannabisSavesLives.org, and this is your weekly edition of the Compassion Flower Report. I want to start with a couple stories for you today that I found rather interesting, mostly because they contradict each other. So let's dive right in and take a look at these. They're not very long stories, but they're packed full of detail and information. We'll be able to get through them very quickly here, but I think you'll find this rather interesting. The two stories that I'm talking about, one is out of Forbes called "Why the Adult Cannabis Market Could Kill Its Medical Counterpart," and the other story, which was actually in Financial Buzz and put out through PR Newswire. Increasing use of cannabis for pain treatment is set to grow the U.S. cannabis market. So we got two stories that are going to talk about a couple different things, and I'll just read through both of them one at a time and kind of take a look at these details. Like I said, they're not very long, but they're chocked full of information. Why the adult cannabis market could kill its counterpart this week out of Forbes. As more states continue to legalize recreational marijuana, the current tally is 9 and Washington, D.C. Speculation is afoot among industry pundits that this could be the precursor to a major slowdown, if not death knell, for the medical marijuana industry, which has 30 states and D.C. allowing its use. According to estimates by leading cannabis researchers, ArcView Market Research, in partnership with BDS Analytics, the latest revenue projections for the U.S. medical cannabis industry in 2018 is $4.3 billion versus $6.7 for adult use. Last year, medical marijuana racked up $5.9 billion, while adult use snagged $2.6 billion. Much of the steep drop in the medical market and surge in recreational use has to do with some users gaining wider access to the substance, said Tom Adams, managing director of industry intelligence at BDS Analytics. He also blames the dip on California, a state legendary for not effectively regulating medical cannabis, which legalized it back in 1996, the first state in the U.S. to do so. Although the state was a $3 billion medical market in 2007, sales are estimated to sink to $293 million in 2018 due to adult use becoming legal as of January 1st. Now users do not have to wade through the red tape to buy cannabis. They can go to any store and purchase the substance on their own. Plus the significant tax breaks imposed on sales for medical patients, many stores have stopped selling medical marijuana, adds Adams. So that is what Forbes is reporting about the adult use market killing the medical market. And just some thoughts on this. First, I don't think that adult recreational use is going to kill medical marijuana. I think we have a problem with inappropriate taxation and over-regulation of probably both industries, but I don't think one is going to kill the other, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Couple things I think that are significant. One is they point out something that I think is quite important, which is that there are 9 states in D.C. that have adult recreational and 30 states with medical, as well as D.C., and this is what they're projecting. Again, these are their projected revenues for 2018 from BDS Analytics. We'll see if that's accurate. I looked a little bit about BDS Analytics, and they've been around since 2015. They're out of Colorado. They look like they have a very capable team. It's not that I question whether or not what their projections are are incorrect. They seem to have a good reputation. It's just, this is a highly regulated market, and it's different state to state, and you've got differences between medical and recreational, and the regulations are always in flux. So it's a really tricky industry, I think, to try for anyone in the markets to try to analyze and figure out. The other thing is, they directly mention California in this story, and I'm sure that's just because it's such a huge part of the market. But a couple things that I want to point out here is that at least the way that Forbes interprets what Tom Adams is saying here is that the decline in medical cannabis sales in California is due to the new adult use market, and that I don't think is accurate at all. My experience here in California is that the reason why medical cannabis sales have plummeted is because these are reports on the regulated market. And I can tell you right now that all of my experience is that the patients are back to the unregulated market. When I ask dispensary operators if they still see their patient members from back before they got the adult license in addition to the medical license, they're telling me no, that they don't see their patients. And when they did see their patients prior to January 1st, the patients were very concerned about the extremely high taxes. So that's the other thing, is that, the story says that significant tax breaks imposed on medical patients is a plus. That is not the case in California. The increased taxation is the number one reason patients have left. What has happened since January 1st, just recently with July 1st, that was the implementation of the new rules regarding testing. And of course, testing results have to be part of the packaging. So these were two things that went into effect that further increased the price of medical cannabis in California. The cost of testing marijuana has gone up 400%, and dispensary operators report that their already increased labeling and packaging expenses increased another 20% to make sure that they complied with all these new rules. So the hyper regulation, at least in California, continues to add to that ticket price, which continues to push, not just patients. The other thing I want to touch upon, and something that I don't see a lot of in, at least I haven't seen as of yet in these market analysis type stories about adult recreational use and medical use, is something I think we'll see in the United States for a while, which is the tourism market. One of the things that is significant with the adult use market is it's new in the United States. It's relatively new, and we've got legalization in some wonderful locations: LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Las Vegas, Denver, Aspen, Boston, Washington, D.C. These are all high tourist areas, and so I think we're going to see an increase in sales for a while in these areas where tourists, simply by virtue of being 21 years and older, can try out one of the United States' legal dispensaries for adult use, and I think we'll see that for a while. So I think that's another reason. What is very interesting, being here in Los Angeles and watching this situation on a local level, is like I said, while I've got dispensary operators that I've worked with for years telling me that they have a huge dip in the number of patients coming in due to the increase in price. Patients in California are used to paying $35 an eighth. That is a really good price. That's a common price. You can get it a little more, a little less, but the $35 eighth was pretty much king. And now with all of the extra taxation and other costs that dispensary operators are accruing on price has gone back up to like 45, 50, 65, even higher. But those that are actually really trying to keep their prices reasonable are having a hard time keeping anything below 50. So these patients and others, everybody knows somebody. So they're going to the unregulated market, and you see the dispensaries, the storefronts that are not in a very touristy area of Los Angeles having a very difficult time, where the dispensaries that are someplace like the Venice Boardwalk, they've got a line out the door. I spoke with a friend of mine who happened to be in a little bit more of a boutique touristy area, and he said most of his traffic is tourists, that he hasn't seen he said, before I got my adult license and to go with my medical, I had 8,000 patient members, and he says, I don't see any of them anymore. And the people who come in are usually new, and even when I was there visiting, sitting in the lobby, everyone in the lobby to see my friend was either there to vend, or they were there from out of town. They were in town for a couple days as a tourist. So that's, I think, another interesting aspect of this medical adult market, is just the effect of tourism on that. So like I said, while I don't agree with the reasons why we're seeing a dip in California, I do agree that we absolutely are seeing a dip. And I do find this story interesting when you're comparing 9 states in the District of Columbia versus 30 states and the District of Columbia, and that difference. So I'll be real curious to see if BDS's analytics, if their projections for 2018 turn out to be accurate. The other story, increasing use of cannabis for pain treatment is set to grow the U.S. medical cannabis market. Like I said, this was a story I found through PR Newswire. It's actually a story put out by Financial Buzz. Again, I'll just read it real quickly and then go through it with you. According to a report published by Global Market Insights, the U.S. medical cannabis market size was valued at over $3.5 billion in 2017 and is expected to exceed $8 billion by 2024, while growing at a compound annual growth rate of 13%. The increasing use of cannabis as treatment for a range of chronic pain will boost the market growth. Currently, 31 U.S. states, I'm assuming they're talking about the 30 and Washington, unless they're including Puerto Rico, legalize cannabis for medical use. According to data from the National Health Interview Survey, about 25 million people suffer from pain every day in the United States. The medical cannabis pain management market in this country is valued at $2.6 billion in 2017, accounting for 75% of the market shares. Based on the distribution channel, and U.S. medical cannabis market can be divided into dispensaries and the online, talking about storefronts and delivery services. At the medical cannabis dispensary generated revenue of $2.1 billion in 2017, while online medical is expected to grow at a rate of 13.9 during the forecast years. So this story is interesting because it doesn't see that adult recreational is going to, as the other story says, it's going to kill its counterpart. Here, this particular group, and I found this interesting because, again, this is a report that is published by Global Market Insights, and I looked them up, and if you look at their website, and I'm going to include a link of this report, this particular report, for you to look at in the description below. And their website looks like any other website you'd go to that published a scientific research paper. The website, the report, it's a 150-page report. It has a summary and a table of contents and several applications, and talks about industry trends and methodology and conclusion and some of that. So the The other thing about this financial buzz story, it's a very short story. Like I said, this report is actually 150 pages, and this newswire story put out by Financial Buzz is just basically the tip of the iceberg of this report. So the report states in the summary that the growth of medical cannabis is due to its use of for pain, but in the report itself, it mentions a range of conditions. It talks about cancer, it talks about seizure disorders, it talks about HIV/AIDS, not just pain, and it really sounds like the researchers focused on the 30 states and Washington D.C. and Puerto Rico, as talking about cannabis being more readily available and breaking down the difference between storefront and delivery, which is really important with medical. They're talking about that accessibility, and that people are more likely to try it and maybe use it to complement or even replace their pharmaceuticals. So this particular report published by Global Market Insights really looks at the potential and the possibility of medical cannabis to be very important in people's treatment. We've got an aging population. We've got the baby boomers. One of the stories I read today is that the baby boomers and Gen X are two of the largest groups using cannabis. I think we're gonna see that from now on, that the older generation of people are going to be using it more often as it's more available, and we erase the stigma of cannabis by making it legal. More people are apt to try it for medical purposes, and I think people are going to find results. I've done medical cannabis social service work for a long time, and patients always report to me that using cannabis in conjunction with their prescriptions either makes their prescriptions work better, makes them not have to use as much or as strong a dose of their pharmaceuticals, and in some cases they've been able to get off of certain pharmaceuticals altogether. So again, two very different reports on the look at medical and adult recreational, and I happen to agree with this Global Market Insights report about where we're headed with people wanting to be more in control of their own health in general. And then as more and more states make it legal and come on board, people are going to be more likely to try this as an option. Couple supplemental stories that I just want to talk about real quickly as well, that are in this same vein as the as medical being a growing space. This story says data shows the global medical cannabis usage continues to grow. This again was another PR Newswire story that I linked back to Financial Buzz, and like I said, Financial Buzz, they put out very short stories, just real quick little press release stories, just a couple paragraphs. But they're citing other research. Their Financial Buzz is reporting on other things. And in this story about the global medical cannabis usage, it says, according to a report published in New Frontier Data, the legal cannabis market was worth an estimated $8.3 billion in 2017 and is projected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 14.7% and reach an estimated $25 billion by 2025. The medical cannabis industry is projected to grow at a compound annual growth rate of 11.8 through 2025, as sales of products for recreational use are set to grow at 18.4%. And be worth $3.2 billion in 2017, 12.5 billion by the end of the forecast period. New Frontier specifies that this data is based on the number of states that have legalized medical or for recreational purposes as of January 2018, and does not include assumptions of additional states legalizing cannabis by 2025. It goes on to talk about Canada becoming the first G20 nation in the world to be on the stock market and kind of where they're headed in Canada. So again, you've got another story looking at another set of data from New Frontier, and they're also showing that medical cannabis usage will also continue to grow as well as adult recreational. Again, just some supplemental info. These were all stories that have just come out like in the matter of 3 days from each other. And then this other story from a digital outlet out of Kenya, Standard Digital, U.S. scholars back medical cannabis. And this story, I won't read it to you. Everything that I'm presenting to you, there's a place where you can find all of it and read it for yourself. But what this story basically says is that there's some researchers at the University of New Mexico that are using an app called Relief to obtain data from about 100,000 patients. And I guess this app allows people to input data about their usage that allows these researchers to collect a lot of data points and come up with some good research about how people are using cannabis for a wide variety of uses, from chronic pain to insomnia. Let's see if there's a little section here. It says the researchers found the patients experience significant benefits when they use cannabis, ranging from chronic pain to insomnia. They defended using the data from the cannabis users app as opposed to random samples. Observational studies are more appropriate than experimental research in measuring how patients choose to consume cannabis and the effects of those choices, said Professor Vigil. So here you've got a university, and I find it really interesting, a story out of Kenya about doing basically anecdotal evidence with an app showing that medical cannabis is still very important and very viable. It's not being regulated very well. And the taxation in some cases is too high. And Patient Advocacy Network is still hearing from patients around the country about how they're having difficult time navigating it. But it hasn't negated its efficacy and its importance and its value. We just need more affordable, more workable regulations for cannabis. Just a couple other stories that I want to point out around this same issue of the need for medical cannabis and efficacy, and that medical cannabis is going to continue to grow, and why we all need to work together to make sure we have a viable medical cannabis system. The Veterans Medical Marijuana Safe Harbor Act, I talked about this in my last edition. This is the bill introduced in Congress to allow the VA doctors to recommend medical cannabis to veterans in states where they allow medical marijuana. The other thing about this bill is it includes funding to study veteran use, and it's primarily to study pain. But I'm sure they're going to find that there are a significant number of veterans using medical cannabis to treat PTSD and other mental health disorders. So I really hope that the Veterans Medical Marijuana Safe Harbor Act passes. The other story that has been in the news, and I don't know that I've had the opportunity to really report on this yet, and I think it's because I want more information. And this is the story that the DEA is suggesting that we grow more medical cannabis and use medical cannabis to help with our nation's opiate and opioid issues. So again, I think we've got all these different, this catalyst moving forward with pain management and pain control that seems to be in the news a lot. Like Illinois just added medical cannabis for chronic pain, and we're seeing more and more discussion. Of course, we're also seeing how medical cannabis is really effective for children who have these really severe forms of epilepsy. We're learning of people who are treating their cancer, just on and on. So I don't think medical cannabis is going anywhere. Like I said, I just think we have to regulate it better. And the other thing that we need to do, and what would make it so much easier on these states and make the stranglehold of state regulation not have to be so stringent, is when we remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act, and we can legalize this on a federal level. The states aren't going to have to be so stringent with all the track and trace and what we're dealing with, all the packaging and so forth. I pulled together another 20 headlines today. All of those stories are available for you on Twitter at Pan for Compassion. I will have that link below for you. You can sign up for email updates at cannabissaveslives.org, and we will send you a link to the medical cannabis news digest that we put together every month or so and send that out. So if you want breaking news links, you'll be able to find that at Pan for Compassion. You can sign up for our email updates. We'll send you our compilation digest that we put together. I want to thank you very much for watching, and please donate. A Patient Advocacy Network is a charitable 501c3 organization. Your donation contributions are always tax deductible. You visit our website at cannabissaveslives.org. You click the donate button. Please consider becoming a monthly sponsor in any amount that's right for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. I'm Degé Coutee, and this has been the Compassion Flower Report.